My name is Matt Bevacqua, Technical Director here at Flying By Foy, and I'm going to give you a brief overview of our new 3D programming environment, Aereographer. I've got set up on the screen right now a very basic move that really demonstrates the key features of Aereographer. In a quick look, it seems like your standard 3D programming environment. I have right now set up a 4-point pendulum. You can see the orange balls here at the top. Those represent my motors. And then I've got some bridle points coming down. And as is typical in the theater when we're flying people, we actually have a connection point and then a fly wire, a small thin cable that comes down to the performer down here. So as we move through space, that person's going to be penduluming and moving around more than just how that bridle point's going to have a rigid connection. What Aereographer does for us is it actually can simulate the true performer flight, the pendulum action and the physics of that flight. So we can get a true indication of how the person will perform in the space before we even get into the venue. And it also allows us to do things like program the swing of the person, so we can program motions that take us outside the control zone. So if we take a look at this very basic point-to-point move I have here on the screen, you can see here these little balls that we have set up through here. These are the points that we've defined for how we'd like the performer to move. The green path is what you'd see in a typical 3D programming environment. That's a straight line connection between our points. And that could also be set as a spline interpolation or as any type of curve that we'd like. But where Aereographer sets itself apart is that we actually see now this red line as well. This red line is going to define how the performer will move as that motion takes place. So if I simulate this, you'll be able to see we can now get a complete feel for how that person's going to move in the air. And this will take place exactly in the venue as you see it on the screen. For instance, we have a system like this set up right now where if I go ahead and preset my points, you'll be able to see this motion take place. Get ourselves into position. And if I go ahead and run this, you'll see it follows with the screen, just like we're looking at. Aereographer also sets itself apart in the fact that we can import any sort of 3D scenery set that you may have and use it as a fully rendered environment for Aereographer to interact with and to overlay their motions on. We can also go ahead and we can put in scenery that will be flown on the piece as well, and you'll be able to see exactly how that piece of scenery will move as it's on the end of its cable. So you don't have the static motion, which is very hard to duplicate without a rigid connection to the piece. We'll be able to actually see here now where I have this unit moving back and forth, and you can see how that piece will actually generate its motion in the space. And you can see how it's just oscillating just slightly at the end. The other thing you'll see up here also is by entering a load for that unit, I've entered 200 pounds, I can now get an accurate indication of how much tension is on my cable the entire flight. And it'll do this completely in simulation, and you can mock your system up and see what kind of dynamics you'll have before you get into the venue. Another exciting new feature of Aereographer as well is that it's programmed completely effect independent. If I start with, let's say, a 3D motion here, I don't actually need to have any effect set up initially. It's just a path through space. And what I can do is I can actually then go through and I can choose different types of motions, systems that I'd like to put that on. I can choose, for instance, a gantry. Here's that motion. You can see the red line's awfully crazy like this, but it'll simulate how that'll be on the gantry system. Or I can come back and I can say I want to do it on a 4-point pendulum. Or I can take my same motors and say I'll do a 4-point pendulum with no wires, in which case I've got a rigid connection to the piece, so you don't see the physics, but I can see the difference between how that'd behave. I could even execute this on a single point pendulum. In this case, you'll see I'm starting off center from my point, and because I have no lateral XY motion, all it'll be able to do is go up and down, but you'll see how that pendulum will act as you lift the point up and down. And you can actually get quite a few different effects by just having a single point on stage, which is where Aereographer really shines. It allows you to create your motion and be able to get the most out of the smallest number of equipment you have in the venue, and then really get a true feel for how the effects will take place before you even get into your space. So there you have a quick introduction to Aereographer. There'll be some more features coming out, but this is your first look at our new exciting package.